Hello, hello. Welcome again. Scott Jared here with Jared Bunch, and I'm glad you're joining us. And as we talk more about how to hack your future and live the good life and live the life you want and make money work for you. Today, I thought that it would be really good to share with you some things that happen around the Jared household as my son loves to turn on ESPN. He's 13 and watch SportsCenter. Well, in today's time, SportsCenter isn't really sports centers. There's very little sports going on. And so it's more about this baseball team had a coronavirus outbreak or a COVID outbreak, or this football player had it. So there's a lot of that type of information on the news and in sports, right? So we're trying to get like out of all the negative stuff and just watch SportsCenter, which usually is more positive, but it keeps coming up. And we've also had the TV off for quite some time as we've been going through this because there's really not much sports on. But anyway, my youngest daughter, who's 7, she goes, "Daddy, can you please turn off that coronavirus news? It makes me want to throw up burp." And I about lost it. That my 7-year-old came to me and was like tired of hearing this negativity. Not that you could feel it, that's what that was. So I was just like blown away. So can you please turn off this coronavirus? It wants me to have a throw up burp. I was like, what the heck was a throw up burp anyway? But I know exactly what you're talking about. So that was eye opening to me, and I just thought that it was like, oh my gosh, here's my 7-year-old, like he's done with mainstream media, done with listening to this stuff. If I started thinking about it, I was like, well, what is going on? Because I think about what we do with our money, and I think about like when we've gone through scary times before and how it's just so bad and all the information is out there just hitting us. And I feel like we're in that right now, and we're getting it so bad because we have an election coming up. We've got all these pending things with COVID and what's happening with coronavirus. We've got social issues, and our country has just got all these like things, and everyone's trying to move their agenda in certain ways as you look at things. So I was like, well, how does it affect our investors? How does it affect our people? Because the last thing I want is people to be like down and out on things. So and now we've got this big information shift happening in the world where you've got mainstream media that's fighting for attention, but all the attention's really going to like the social bloggers and stuff, where you've got your YouTubers and you've got your your Twitter feeds and you got Instagram. You have all these different platforms, which are like now your Fox, NBC, CBS, these new platforms that are out there, which are really gathering attention. And in my studies on like using headlines and trying to attract attention, and from my years of like understanding sales within technical companies, you really want to kind of impact fear into somebody, tell them what they're doing wrong to get them off of their ball, like to show them that there's some issue to get them over. And quite honestly, when we started our company, Jared Bunch Consulting, a consultant told me that consulting meant overpriced and no value. And I was like, that's maybe we should drop the consulting, right? But what it was saying is that consultants are trying to find the issue, take you off and move it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so eye-opening that my 7-year-old's actually picking up on the fear agenda and is done with living in that world and wants to move on to something other than that, even though it's definitely an issue right now that has to be addressed. So we're working through it, not discrediting that at all, but it's so constant as everyone's trying to gather attention. So I started to do some more homework on what really is happening when you have these fear-based marketing campaigns that are trying to do it. So I just literally went on Wikipedia and I searched for it, and what it is, it's called fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So as investors, fear, uncertainty, and doubt's always there as you go through that emotional roller coaster that we've discussed and how that moves through. But it's what it stands for. It's a disinformation strategy. And I say it all the time. It's like it's misinformation out there, and it's impacting our decisions. So it takes us off our course because we're trying to move somebody to something other than that. So they're trying to say, oh, don't invest in the market. Go over here and buy this annuity, which low risk. high cost really, but it's all hidden and stuff. So let's go over here because that's what makes sense. And so I see that. I'm like, oh, you're trying to do fear. I'm not really teaching people how markets really work and then move them over. So it's disinformation strategy used in sales, okay, marketing, public relations, and as you know, it's used in politics, and actually in the same category, cults and other propaganda. So FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt, is generally a strategy to influence the perception by disseminating negative and dubious or false information and manifestation of the appeal to fear. And this started back in the early 20th century, and then the present common usage as disinformation, and it really started actually in the software, hardware, and the technology industries where you're seeing a lot of lawsuits. And it generally appeared in the 70s to describe disinformation in the computer hardware industry, and it's been used more broadly. I know I used to work at AT&T, and when I was there, I would be like, hey, you're never going to get fired for hiring AT&T. We may have some issues, but we're going to suck less than the competitor. So why don't you just pick AT&T? Let's just be honest, right? So that's not like it's a dubious thing, but the reality is that brand is so strong that you can go through with that. Now, when I started reading through some of these lawsuits that were in here, and a lot of it was software providers like Microsoft has been done saying that they've used FUD marketing tactics to pull stuff from IBM. Well, IBM was doing the same thing. And it goes back and forth, and you see these, and these are like a lot of these times where you have these lawsuits and things, the way perception is trying to go and what they're doing. So it was just amazing as I was looking at large company brands that use FUD tactics. And for sure, the investment industry is doing the same thing to drive you off your path of what that is. So I don't know if you guys remember back when Apple iPhones, you couldn't really go in and mess with it. So people were what they called jailbreaking it. So they would go in, hack it, and they would get into the phone and unlock all the stuff that it could do. But the Apple would come out and say, no, that's actually going to crash cell phone towers. It's going to bring down the entire network. And which is, so basically it's a threat, but more FUD than truth. Because really they didn't want people hacking their phones, right, and doing that kind of stuff. So that's how they were able to use it and things like that. Like Clorox back in 2008, they said their advertising was the Green Works. I'm sure you're familiar with the Green Works, but essentially environmentally cleaning products. So it says, in quotes, finally, Green Works. And what the slogan implies is that green products manufactured by other companies that were not Clorox based weren't safe, essentially, which is, once again, that's not as direct as other FUD stuff, but that's where it is. So when you start getting the tagline, because remember, the headline is trying to draw you in, and a lot of times the headline's all we read, and then you actually start reading the content of the article, and it's literally telling you the opposite of what the headline is, or it's not giving you any statistics on what that is, because everyone's trying to grab and gather your attention. So be very cognizant and understanding of what the advertiser's trying to do, what the article's trying to do before you get down and sucked in. Because you need to stay positive, you need to stay focused on your future goals, you need to work there and not try to get into all this FUD type of communication. But you know, bad news travels fast, like bad news sells, like it's what it is. So, but we have to be smart with the way we see it. It's the same thing with the markets. When you hear all this stuff, I mean, oh, the market's crashing, things are going so bad. Well, that's probably a good time to get in, right? When others are being fearful, that's when you need to be greedy. When others are greedy, probably should be fearful. The famous gentleman named Warren Buffett made that very clear in one of his quotes. So we have to understand where things are going, try to take the emotion out of it, understand our logic, go back to our lifetime vision, what we're trying to accomplish, focus on the long term, focus on what's important to us and our family, and hopefully that those fear agendas and the FUDs and all the stuff that we see out there are just bouncing off of us. They're just like we're armor, man. We're moving through and it's bouncing off. We're narrowly focused. We know we know what we want for our life. We know what days we want to live. We're good. right? And we got to move through a lot of that noise as we go forward. But we have to identify when we're being flooded, when we're seeing fear tactics, when these things are coming in, because we have to be narrowly focused. And that's my belief is I'm always optimistic about what's happening, but I have to understand where the dangers are, where the threats, where the opportunities exist. But I have to have some of that background information of where I'm going and where my clients are going to help pull them through the muck. But I need your help. I need you to help identify it. Keep your emotional IQ high, right? Don't get sucked in and go back up to the level where you need to be. And we're people, we have empathy, we have emotions, we have all this. And this is why this kind of marketing works so well, of getting us to move from one product to another, or to have one stand versus another. But we have to be clear on what we stand for as a household, what our values are. We have to be very clear on what the way we want to approach it. And then we can move through this journey much more clearly as we go, because we really want, what we see from our clients is live the life you want. And we want you to become independently wealthy. We want you to have money work for you versus for other people. That's the ticket. But be very cognizant of where you go, because as you go through the journey, trust me, there's going to be people punching at you, trying to derail, take you off your path. But the people that are narrowly focused are the ones that win. All right, that's it for today, and we'll talk soon. Have a great day, and don't forget to future hack.